Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to throw out a quick video this morning. I've been really busy with work and other things going on and getting the homeschooling going some more. Can you afford to homeschool if you're poor? You bet you can. You actually can homeschool many times better with less money. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times you have to work harder because you don't have the luxury of having the time or the money to homeschool in a way that a lot of people do. Sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's differently. But I do know hard work is a huge factor in homeschooling. It's usually successful because people are willing to work so hard. When you are convicted or feel called to something, you're going to work even harder. You're going to have more passion for something. So I really felt my story about homeschooling in poverty is I really felt that homeschooling was a calling for me. I had graduated early from high school, and then when I had gone to a church, I saw a lot of families homeschooling, and I really liked how intact the family was. That's what drew me to homeschooling originally. And I also knew as my firstborn was getting a little older, I didn't feel the need to send him off to school. I felt like I myself had a huge hunger as a mother to mother my children. I felt really passionate about mothering. I wanted to be the best mother I could be. I remember as I shared before, with a forced abortion, no consent or anything being brought to the clinic, sometimes there's that emptiness that you desire a child even more after something like that happens to you. And I forget the name that they use for that. But yes, I definitely loved being a mother. I loved being a mom. So when I had my firstborn, I just took that role on completely with no hesitation, no question. I didn't really doubt myself at all. I just took it on, and some of my earliest memories in an apartment with my firstborn was going across the street and hanging out in the park with him, buying him tons of, a lot of it was given to us, tons of stuffed animals, and just playing with him. I remember when I went to hairdressing school, I was pregnant unexpectedly. We hear about Planned Parenthood, and there is no perfect time to plan a child. So I had thought God was punishing me and I couldn't have children. And then I had my firstborn when I was in school, when I was in hairdressing school, and I finished and graduated hairdressing school while I was pregnant. So then it made more sense to be on Medicaid than to continue in a career when everything could be covered medically with a being on Medicaid. So that made more sense. So I just stayed home and I just waited and waited for him to be ready to be born. So those were the beginnings. And then right away I was pregnant again with my second one within 9 months. So they were a year and a half apart. And by then I was pregnant and we were moving. And we had to move because our apartment was not suitable the way it was set up for 2 children. So we had looked around and there was a trailer we liked, and we moved in while I was pregnant there. And then we had I had my third pregnancy on the way shortly after again, and now we had 3 in a trailer. And as that happened, we were doing really well financially, and then the economy started going down. My husband had cancer, and that was a huge factor with finances. That was huge. He couldn't work for a time. God does provide, and we had the help we needed. And we actually had a doctor's office write off $25,000. So if we had saved, this is the way I look at it, if we had saved $25,000, not only would that have been gone, wiped out our savings, but every other bill that came with the cancer that we got help with in the catastrophic illness program that took care of quite a bit would have wiped out a good 100,000 or so. So we were really lucky in that aspect. But I was already homeschooling. I was already starting. So by then, let's see, my firstborn was about 5 when the cancer hit. No, wait a minute. No, actually he was about 3, yeah. And we had, with the cancer, our 3rd one on the way, and this was with the first home birth, and this was with 2 surgeries with the cancer all happening at once. So it was absolutely crazy. So then things started really going down about there financially. And so when I was homeschooling, starting when my firstborn was like 1, I started looking into it, and I turned the playtime into a lot of learning time. So I consider myself homeschooling him like when he was 1, you know, taking letter blocks and building words, and you know, just walks with him and playing. And then when my kids were, you know, my firstborn was like 3, I was having him walk with the stroller as my secondborn was in the stroller. And then I had 2 of my little boys walking with, no, my firstborn walking with 2 in the stroller. And then I think we had gotten rid of that stroller, and I had just a smaller one with 2 of the boys walking, teaching them biblical verses, etc. So when you have poverty, and I'm talking about having a disconnect from your water bill, like on a regular basis, disconnect for your electric, disconnect or eviction for your rent, you have to really work hard at calling people and staying, you know, making payment plans, saying you just don't have the money. And I know for us, where I had boom, 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 3, and many would have said, well, why did you have kids if you couldn't afford them? The thing that I found to be true is you cannot always afford kids. I mean, it's kind of like a joke. How much money do you need to afford kids? I really think you need to put your priorities in order. You can only have kids for a short time. In my world, having kids in poverty, seeing a grandmother have 10 in poverty was normal. Seeing family members that didn't have anything when they started off, and then as the kids get older, they have more, makes sense. You're not going to be able to have a lot when you start off with your family, because there's so many changes, there's so much going on. I know for us, I stayed home, which I do not regret that at all. I am so glad I did. But I was staying home in a trailer. My husband had a very low wage job, and there just was not enough coming in. And it really made sense for kids, you know, especially boys, to have their dad home and to find resources to help you out than to have a dad absent from the home all the time and having to work all the time. So that's the route we took. And when, you know, people can wait for their money. Okay, when you're putting food on the table, you have to prioritize. Am I going to put food on the table, or is a big electric company that has millions of dollars, can they wait? Yes, they can. And living in a trailer, you know, gives you time to pay an eviction, because it's a trailer and it's harder to kick you out. So that's a blessing. Taking all the resources with Medicaid, WIC, I didn't really use food stamps much. I probably could have taken a lot more help than I did. But the biggest thing you're going to use when you homeschool and you don't have a lot of money is your time. To be very disciplined, to wake up in the morning, to make sure breakfast is on the table, to make sure dishes are done, and that there's not a lot of waste. I mean, lights off. Now I don't worry so much about the lights being off when you leave a room. And I know that doesn't sound very minimalist, but a lot of times it's just not worth my time when I'm busy running around the home to put a light off and a light on when I'm going right back into the room. So it's a different, still minimalist, but a different style. I have a stain on my shirt. I am very minimalist when it comes to some of my clothes. I still don't really care that much for buying a lot of nice clothes. When I'm out, it's a little different. And I have heard people say, when you're home, try to look your best because it is your home. And I feel like if I'm cleaning throughout the day, in the morning, when I'm not working, that's a different situation for me where I'm going to wear my raggy clothes. If I have a day where I'm more reading and writing, I'll dress up at home. But I do like that variety. So how do you homeschool when you don't have much money? Again, I would say the biggest thing is your time. And because you can be very disciplined and have a schedule, make sure the kids have a nap, make sure you get time to yourself, even if they just have to lay down and they can't sleep, you need that time to yourself. So I know nursing was a huge benefit that saved a lot of money. Making your own baby food, using cloth diapers, this is all time consuming. But if you choose to stay home, the time you put in really saves you a lot of money. And one thing I liked is a lot of times when you're cuddling with your kids is you also have that time to read to them. You have time if they're napping on you to read and relax. So it can slow you down too as far as getting things done, but you do need that break time. You do need the cushions when you're a mother to take care of yourself. Let me see. A lot of times I lived outside the trailer. I remember I was pretty content in the trailer. It was small, but I kept it, somewhat organized, but it always seemed like because it was small, there was something that needed to be done. But I remember someone saying, well, at least you can live outside your trailer because you have a nice yard. And that was a big resource too for us. We had a nice yard, and we lived in a nice trailer park, which was really nice because I was free enough to let my kids go out and bike around the park and not really worry too much. I mean, it's not like we lived on a highway. And then when they were older, they walked everywhere because we were in the city. They took a bus, they biked everywhere. So that was great. We also had a lot of resources in the city. We had the pools, we had the parks, we had youth group, we had church events. So when you are that disciplined and just you're out there, get out there and do, you take that situation and you kind of turn it around for your benefit. That's how you can live with very little money. As far as the homeschooling part, what I did was I didn't have money for any books, which is coming from public school, you always had plenty of stuff. The schools do tend to, I think, waste a lot of money. I think there's a lot of bad management in the schools, kind of like the military sometimes. But anyways, what I had to do is I had to find resources for free. So what I would do is go to the library many times and I would do my research and say, okay, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I would look it up. Later on in my homeschooling, I actually had a few extra bucks here and there to buy used books at the library, but my biggest resource was the interlibrary loan card or library card where I could actually get any book in the whole entire world at my fingertips with just a library card. So taking your time to homeschool, I find it's really good because what you're doing is you're doing deep work. You're building at a deeper level. It's not just busy work. It's not just, hey, let's drop you off at school, get this stuff done. It's a deeper sense of learning. And it's also neat because you have kids who are very individual. Many times the schools will just label kids and you really get to know your kids. You get to know their personality. You get to know how they operate. And you're building and bonding relationships as you work together doing different stuff. So I loved homeschooling and, Sometimes when we have had extra money, there was once I brought one curriculum, I had felt like it was a total waste of money. I didn't really use it, and that's the only time I think I really wasted money with homeschooling. Otherwise, it was, because money was so tight, it was make sure you like this book before you order it. So what I did do when I did have some money is I brought the foundational books. I brought the books that told you how to, like Charlotte Mason is a big resource book. Mary Pride has a big resource book. Kathy Duffy, Ruth Beechick, John Holt, the ones that you could get so much out of it that you can take a book and just build a whole year's curriculum from one book. So usually I would borrow the books first, and if I really liked them, really had to like them, I would buy them. So that ended up later on being part of my library, so I could go back to those books and keep encouraging myself. And that's something you want to do too when you're homeschooling. You want to have resources on hand or online to just encourage you. Because I think one of the hardest things about homeschooling is not the money, but it's staying encouraged. Especially years ago when people were not homeschooling. I know my era of homeschooling worked off the pioneers of homeschooling, the ones who could go to jail because they were homeschooling their kids. So when I was homeschooling and people are working off our work now or our backs, what we did is we were coming out too with the homeschooling and built on them. And many times we also received a lot of persecution for homeschooling. I had people say to me, I hope you're not going to ruin your kids by homeschooling. If you think you can do it, then do it. But I don't know if you can. And just a lot of naysayers, and it's wonderful when you go through things and nobody thinks you can do it and you get through it, whether that's poverty. Now we have much more money, and I knew we would down the road. That was my vision. As a teenager, I had money, I waitressed and I worked and I had things, a little bit materialistic there, so I was willing to suffer or go without to meet those goals that I wanted, that were more important to me than money. So you can do it, you can homeschool, and I just want to encourage you. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe, leave a comment, and yeah, thank you.